Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome back to another segment of Coffee and Connections with the Chief. I'm Chief Dean Rondeau with the Wolfeboro Police Department, and to my left is my Executive Officer, Captain Mark Livy. And we are in September. It's hard to imagine that. It seems like the summer flew by. We were very busy at the Wolfeboro PD. In spite of rising gas prices and under-forecasted gasoline pricing, we were very, very busy, and we had a lot of work and a lot of activities. There were a lot of construction details trying to recover from the pandemic and everything that went with that. So it was really certainly a very interesting summer. Speaking of which, we got Labor Day coming up on the 5th, and the kids go back to school on the 6th of September. So what does that really mean? That means that there's going to be a lot of traffic on the road. You'll start seeing the school buses on the roads. Kids will be walking and biking to school, trying to enjoy those last few days while the weather is still good, because we know what we have in about 8 weeks, right? In about 8 weeks, the snow's going to start flying. So get ready for that. Start preparing. Use this time wisely and prepare for the winter. But be careful when you're out and about, because the kids are still playing outside after school. They're going to the playgrounds and riding the bicycles, trying to get those last few vestiges of warm summer days and fall days in before the weather starts to turn. Leave a few minutes earlier for your appointments, especially in the morning and in the late afternoon, because in the morning the school buses and the kids and the parents will be taking their kids to school, and there'll be a lot more traffic on the roads. And the same thing, sometime between 2:30 and 3:30, you'll have the same thing, right? Everybody's going to after-school practices or band concerts or recitals or whatever the case may be. So prepare for that, busy, hectic, late afternoon traffic and early morning traffic. Leave a few minutes early or earlier before your appointments or your destinations. Just leave ample time to get to and from, because traffic is going to be heavy. Speaking of such things as traffic, we are still noticing lots of uninspected, unregistered motor vehicles. And I'm not talking a few days overdue. That's not what I'm talking about. Although that would be bad enough with a vehicle registration. But I'm talking several months, sometimes even years overdue. And now that's just unacceptable. If you're one of these folks that you're not going to get your vehicle inspected, or you your vehicle is uninspected, and it's quite a few months overdue, you're going to get a ticket, right? You're just going to get a ticket. That's all there is to it. If your vehicle is unregistered, you're really running the risk of not just getting a summons for that, but having the vehicle towed. It can't be on the road if it's unregistered, right? And that's just no joke, no fooling. So get those taken care of. Get your vehicle registered, get them inspected. That's really the only thing I have to say about that. Beyond that, I'm going to turn it over to the captain now for an operational update from the Wolfeboro PD. Captain.
Yeah. Thanks, Chief. So with the PD, to emphasize on that, inspections and uninspected and unregistered vehicles, so I conducted a grant for the highway safety, and in a 2-hour span, I pulled over 7 cars that were all uninspected. The excuse of, I only take this down to the dump, or once you put that vehicle on a town road, it needs to be all registered and inspected to safety standards. That's why they do it. It's the safety for everybody else on the roadway. So just go out there and get that done. With the police department operations, so highway safety grants, as I just mentioned, they're out there. They're going to be out there until September 15th. Next year's will start up on October 1st. We're still waiting for the approval on that, but we should be getting that shortly. The officers are out and about. We have still Aiden Stedman that's still in the academy. He will be in the academy until I believe it's sometime right before Thanksgiving.
That's correct.
It's 16 weeks. It's a long 16 weeks, and then it's a long 12 weeks of FTO. So he'll be out on the road by himself sometime next year, and after being through the field training program. Officer Chris Dustin, he has come on board full-time with us. So on August 29th, that was that Monday. So the interesting part with Officer Dustin, so he's part-time certified, so moving him to full-time, he has the certification so he can be by himself right away. And he's going to be going to the academy in January, which is January 2nd is the next academy. So he'll be going into that one, which will be another 16 weeks that he'll be into that. So that's exciting for us. That will get us full staffed, which we are full staff. It's just we just don't have the bodies out yet because they're getting trained. Really, that's it. I mean, they're getting trained to be full-time certified officers, and it takes a while. So we're getting there. As he mentioned, school's opening up September 6th. September 1st, they have step-up day for a few grade schools like 7th grade, freshmen, to get used to going through the school system and the school hallways without everybody in there. So you'll see some traffic coming on the September 1st. I mentioned that last month. And September 6th, that Tuesday, it's going to be busy. So be prepared. If you're going through South Main Street between the hours of 6:30 and 7:30, be prepared to be in line, especially first day. I mean, that thing can get backed up all the way to downtown to all the way to 109A. I mean, 109A. So it's amazing that first day and really that first week, the traffic that comes in there. Then everyone starts to figure out the best time for them to get through, and it works well. So just get that first week, give yourself some time to get through there. With dispatch, everything's good, everything's moving. With both dispatch and the police department this year, our call volume is up. When I say up, there is a lot of calls, and these calls are just not your routine bin checks. These calls are a lot of investigations. Now, investigations for our officers take time because they got to follow up with these investigations, which make it challenging for us to get these officers everywhere they need to be. So the town's getting bigger. That's really it is. I mean, not land-wise, but there's a lot more people. Yeah, population, people are here, and especially this summer, a lot of people came here this summer. So, and then Officer Devine will be up at the school. She'll be starting up there on September 6th, moving out of patrol back into the school resource officer position. So if you do need her, contact the school. They'll get her into, you'll get her from up there, much easier than getting her from the police department. Other than that, I think we're pretty much covered the operations that we have right now. I'll give it back to the chief.
So yeah, just a couple of things I want to mention. What the captain said is true in terms of the complexities of the crimes that we're seeing. So I'm one of the longest serving members in the Wolfeboro PD. I've been here now almost 27 years. And I will tell you that when I was a patrolman, I spent a lot of time doing, simple assault investigations and criminal trespass and disorderly conduct and things along those lines. And then about 10 years into that, the nature and the type and the dynamic of crime began to change. And that's for a whole variety of different reasons I'm not going to bore anybody with. I know why. And we can have that discussion sometime if you like. Just come up and ask me, talk to me. I'm going to give you my opinion on that. What we're seeing now are very complex crimes. We see a lot of confidence schemes, so fraud cases, for example, and games of chance type things where people get duped. All right, those are very complex cases that require an awful lot of investigative work. So oftentimes we call these scams, right? We do see a lot of those. We do see a lot of very complex domestic violence type cases. We see a lot of complex drug cases, and I'm not talking about marijuana, although we do see that. which is fairly easy to investigate. But we're seeing a lot of still a lot of opioid cases and other types of drugs that are felony level cases that require a lot of detailed investigative work and drug examinations and drug analysis and so forth and so on. We're still seeing a lot of DWIs. DWIs are probably one of the core tasks of the patrol division, right? I would call that a core task, is DWI interdiction, keeping our roads safe. But any DWI investigation is detailed and complex, and there's a lot to that goes into that, and we do a very nice job with our DWI cases and prosecutions. So the point I want to get at here is that when things happen, whether it's a bad car crash or whether it's an incident, either in this town or one of our neighboring towns in the area, please just be careful about spreading, false information, even if it's information you happen to believe is true. Be careful with that, because that information gets out across the airwaves via social media and Instagram and Twitter and so forth, and whatever platform, social media platform is the platform du jour, so to speak. But oftentimes that information is wrong. When I was in Iraq and serving and this is when I was a lieutenant colonel, I was chief of operations for a brigade supporting 18th Airborne Corps. We would deal with probably upwards of 12 to 24 serious incident reports across the breadth of Iraq a day. And the one thing that was always true with those is that first reports are always wrong, right? First reports are always wrong. And so I managed an emergency operations center, and we responded to all sorts of crises and actions and so forth. And the first reports were always wrong. And that's the one truism that I will take away, that I took away from my time in Iraq, is that generally speaking, the first reports coming in were always wrong. They were always inaccurate. And that's the same thing I want to tell you folks. You hear about something or you see something and you put it out over Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and it's generally missing information. It's missing detail. It's missing context. It's not exactly what happened, and it just makes the matter worse, and it spins up your fellow citizens and residents, and it's not good. So best to wait until the police department or the fire department or the town or whatever public information officer cuts a press release. And along those lines, I just want to say that if a case originates with the Wolfeboro Police Department and then goes up to the county attorney's office, all that information has to be released by the county attorney, may not be released by me. And the reason being is because it's up to them to prosecute the case. We're not going to release information that may jeopardize or compromise their ability to prosecute. So just keep that in the back of your mind, right? That oftentimes, we send a case up to the county attorney's office either for review or for prosecution or whatever the case may be. Until the decision is made as to what agency is going to prosecute that case, we're not going to cut any press release. We're not going to release any information on that until we know what's going on and who's going to handle the case. And that one agency then has to be the releaser of information. And that only makes sense. You can't have 2 or 3 different groups releasing information, because it needs to be coordinated. You don't want to be for the same reason that I just mentioned. We don't want to be releasing bad information. So I just want you folks to keep that in mind. Okay, so information is critical. If you're going to release information, at least make sure it's accurate before you release it. Okay, or put something out, because oftentimes when you put bad information out, it just adds to the hysteria that's already surrounding a critical incident or an event. So just be mindful of that, right? Do all your fellow citizens a big favor there. So that wraps it up, I think, for this segment of Coffee and Connections with the Chief. Please join us next month. We'll be moving into October. Of course, we got the Sandwich Fair coming up, one of my favorite events. You've got Columbus Day weekend, and that's when the Sandwich Fair happens, over that Columbus Day weekend. And then you've got my favorite holiday, Halloween, right? You got Halloween coming up. So I look forward to this every year, okay? And so I'll see you again back in October. Thank you very much. So this is Chief Rondeau and Captain Mark Livy signing off, and we'll see you again. Take care out there. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Coffee and Connections with the Chief. I'm Chief Dean Rondeau, and we're being joined by Jim. Jim is from Tufton Borough, and he has a few questions he wants to ask, and I'm going to turn it over to Jim. There you go.
Thank you very much. I've noticed in the past year, since we've lived up here full-time, long-time seasonal, now we lived here, that the department has an electric vehicle, looks like a Tesla. So I was wondering, what's the experience been like? Plans for any future additions or deletions to what you have? Where do you charge it? Who gets to use it? Do you like it, not like it?
Perfect. Great questions. So I get to use it, so it's issued to me. So answer that so I can answer all these questions.
If I get it, I'll throw coffee in it.
Yeah, he's not allowed without a cover to make a mess in there. So we charge it at the PD, so we have a charger in our garage. So it's charged there. I do take it home. I just manage the charging because due to my position, it's more administrative. So the car has its advantages and disadvantages. The advantage to it is the gas right now. Electricity has gone up around the general area, but with Wolfeboro, the electric has stayed the same. We're in a 5-year contract, so it's wonderful. So the amount of electricity that we've used, I did a 6-month, I got to do a year, I just haven't got there yet. The 6 months, I think it was like $177 that we were used over for like 4,500 miles. Yeah, so it's
a huge savings.
It's huge savings, and this was all donated. So $66,000 was donated. So it was no basically price to the town, no cost.
Donated from a group?
No, just a citizen.
Okay.
So that's a big factor right there because, I mean, electric vehicles are not cheap. They're a lot more expensive than, I mean, an Explorer, which we go from right now as we do the hybrids, but those have gone up $12,000 this year from last year. So there is a price increase, but they're probably a difference between $10,000 to $14,000 from an electric vehicle to a gas hybrid vehicle. So that's what we're trying to look at now and see what a year brings. I mean, is it great for patrol? It depends on how you use it for patrol. Larger cities can use it for just out on the road, just doing traffic. So if you use it that way, I think it's perfect vehicle. If you use it for detective, perfect vehicle. A chief, myself, our positions, yes. I do use it for patrol here and there when I cover. At nighttime, it's a little bit trickier due to the electricity of it, the gadgets, how it's built, and the fact that my key is this phone. I mean, there is a card, but most likely this is it. So when I get out of a car, it shuts down. I mean, so if I walk up to that car in front of me, I come back, I learned that real fast. I didn't have anything on anymore. And all the lights were off, everything was off. So we had to make some bypasses. So, and some extra buttons in there for myself. So that's the challenges too, because I mean, since I've had it for a year, so almost 18 years, I'm geared, my memory is to something, I just know where to go. My hands, where to flick the lights, where to go. All our lights are all the same places. Now we get into this car. I mean, in the beginning, everything's different. Yeah, everything's remotes. It's a lot different.
Did you ever do any time in the military?
No.
Yeah.
So what the captain is referring to is what is called muscle memory, right? And you know, as a police officer, that's very important. You know, firefighter, police officer, you know, EMTs, everything should be always exactly in the same place. That's why you stay with a specific type of vehicle. So in the military, so I did 34 years in the U.S. Army, and you know, I was in the infantry, and I was both light infantry and heavy mech. And so when you're in a track or Humvee, every track, you know, track vehicle, whether it's a 113 or a Bradley, is equipped and built the same way, and you have load plans and everybody knows where the first aid kit is, for example, and where the spare ammo is, and the hand grenades, and so forth and so on, and where all the radios are mounted and all in the same locations. And that's because in a crisis or an emergency, right, you've got that muscle memory, and as the captain was talking about, I know where the lights are, I know where the radio switch is, I know where the takedown lights are, so forth and so on. He just automatically hits it, right? You know where the release button is for the weapons rack, so the rifle can be secured and put into action quickly if need be. So these are the things that are really important. So when you're going between, say, for example, a Tesla, which operates completely different from any other vehicle, versus a Ford Explorer, you have to relearn everything, and in a crisis that could be really dangerous, right? So for an administrative vehicle, for, you know, as the captain said, the use for the detective or for a prosecutor or somebody like that's a court officer or somebody who's going to have a very specific task and to be in that vehicle every day, then yeah, it's a great vehicle. It's saving us a lot of money on fuel. We get to run a lot of errands with that vehicle, whether we're running paperwork up to the courts or we're going to the county attorney's office for a meeting or whatever the case may be. It's saving us a tremendous amount of money on fuel. It's a real cost savings to the citizen. But for a general patrol vehicle, for us, because our agency is so small, it doesn't really make for a good patrol vehicle. Now, if we were larger, like the city of Manchester, and they have a dedicated traffic division, sure, that would make perfect sense, right? You would save an awful lot of money. So that was that's essentially the whole wrap up on the test.
And it will be interesting as years go on to see. I mean, there's really no maintenance to it. I mean, we change tires every winter and summer.
Aluminum.
Yeah. So it's very minimum. I mean, I put window washer fluid into it. That's the biggest thing for the year. So yeah, it's just the tires is just the change. Other than that, we haven't really had any maintenance on it.
Okay, so any so any future deployments of electric vehicles in the department would probably be on the smaller side because we're a smaller town. But there's still specific savings that you're getting out of it.
Huge.
Where does that go?
Back to the taxpayer.
Does it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. So
Yeah, no, so the bottom line is what happens is when you have an electric vehicle or even a hybrid vehicle, right? So we have a couple of hybrid vehicles in the fleet now. It was my decision about 3 years ago to start going to hybrids because we save fuel and oil. We save on repair parts, less wear and tear on the vehicles. So what will happen is that savings will be realized over time, a little bit, you know, and these numbers aren't going to work out exactly like that, but let's just say that we'd say we added a vehicle, and just to keep the numbers simple, let's say you got a 10% cost savings in fuel and oil for that one vehicle. Well, what happens is that following year when you're budgeting for fuel and oil, right, you're budgeting 10% less, right, theoretically. Now, those numbers, don't quote me on 10%. That was just a number I'm using as an example. But whether it might be 1%, it might be 3%, it might be 5%. But you'll see that over time. Now the problem that we have, right, is being able to really be able to show that at this point in time, because gas is what, 2.5 times. Yeah. So, and in fact, we're getting ready to move into a budget season. And I'm not looking forward to this at all because, you know, gas is 2.5 times. And I know someone's going to say, well, we're all these savings that we're seeing from the Tesla. And I'm going, well, hang on now, Hammer, hang on. Gas has increased 2.5-fold. So any savings that you would have seen is clearly eaten up. But if you want, here's how you would do it. You would say, okay, we're you know, whatever that savings may be, like I said, between 1% and 5%, factor in an additional 1% to 5% on top of what the number I just gave you, and that's your savings, right? That would be your savings. We had to do that last year. You know, people couldn't understand. Wow, you have all these hybrids. No, I have two. You know, they don't happen overnight. You know, we gotta do it slowly.
And how long a car comes to us, because we ordered one last year, and they were like, well, you got two in a Tesla, but we didn't get that vehicle. We order in April, but I mean, it's almost a year before we see that car on the road right now. So, and that's what's going to be for next year. So the savings, like you said, is hard due to the fuel cost.
But eventually we're going to get there, right? We know we're going to get there. Mathematically, you project it out. We're going to get there. And my goal is, so I have 11 vehicles in the fleet. This year we're going to drop one, and we're just going to go with 10 vehicles in the fleet. And of that 10 vehicle, we'll hopefully we'll have our third hybrid vehicle coming on board sometime. But we're running on about a year delay. But so we'll have 3 out of the 10 that will be in the fleet, and then the following year hopefully we'll get a fourth. And so sometime when he's retired, the whole fleet will be changed over. But it's going to take that long.
Yeah, because then you see. The problem is the cost of the car. Like I said, it went up $12,000 this year. So the savings you see here is now put into there to do those costs. There is a savings. It's not going up that much. It's only going up this much. Yeah. So it's just hard for people to see that.
Okay, but the initial cost, though, it sounds like it implies more hybrids for a while and less all electric.
Yeah, I think that's really the key to victory, right? Is until and I think that they need to work out some issues with the electric fleets. So for example, there's got to be there needs to be a better way to rapidly charge that vehicle. So what the captain was saying is very true, right? If you got a big operation coming along and you're out of gas, well, you just go spend 5 minutes and fuel it up. But if you got a big operation, you may have to take 2.5 hours to charge that car, right? And so they'll get a handle on that. They'll get a handle on the battery and the storage capacity. I think what you'll see, and I think this is leading the way to a couple of big things that I think you'll see in the building industry, for example. I think you'll see new homes equipped with storage batteries eventually when they get past that technology. And you'll see houses equipped with solar collectors, and whether you're selling that energy back to the local electric company or the house is storing collecting that energy and storing it for later use down the road. I think that's what you'll see that in 5 years. I think you're going to see that in 5 years. So we're really on the cusp of some really exciting new technology that is, I think, going to probably improve everybody's life. And we talk about wanting green this and green that, and the ozone layer being depleted and everything else that's going on. I think that at the end of the day, I think a lot of this just makes sense to do. And so it is kind of interesting.
And I think as these companies keep growing, we're talking to your manufacturers for these vehicles, like look at Ford, and I stick with Ford because that's what kind of cars we do have. Your F-150s become electric. Give it time, the Explorers will probably become electric, and they can make a Ford Interceptor electric, which would be it would be easier because then your muscle memory, everything would be still the same, but it's just electric, and maybe you have some electric and some hybrids, and you mix it. But they're all inside that vehicle, all looks the same.
So did you want to ask another question?
Well, the one about your comment. So earlier in your discussion, you had mentioned how initial reports are always wrong. But I didn't hear the whole discussion, and not wanting to jump to any inappropriate conclusions and be wrong, my question is, what exactly were you referring to? Was it a particular type of incident, or was it more generalized?
No, it was definitely a generalized comment, and we've seen here in Wolfeboro over the last 2 or 3 years, we've had a number of major incidents, critical incidents. We've had a few shootings, and we had a few years ago we had a double homicide on Lake Street. We've had some big fires, and what happens is often before we even have a chance to be able to get information out to the public that's accurate, it's being shared on Facebook. Oh my God, there was a mass shooting, or the whole school is burning down, or there's a forest fire on Barney Road, and none of that's true. None of it's true, right? But people share at the speed of electrons. They share this information. It goes out over Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or some other news feed or social media platform of your choice, and invariably the information is always wrong or it's inaccurate. And this is what I want to caution against and warn about, that let the government officials figure out who's ever responsible for letting the press release, whether it's the fire chief or myself or the town manager or the board of selectmen, whoever it is, let them get the correct information out, because at least it's been looked at, it's been verified, and oftentimes that takes time. And what I was saying is, when I was in Iraq as a lieutenant colonel, I was in charge of a brigade operations center, which is a large animal. And we covered the entire country, and I had troops deployed all the way from the northern and southern borders throughout the east and west, and along the border with Iran and so forth and so on. And we would get a handful each day, 12 to 24, what we called serious incidents, right? SIR reports, right? Serious incident reports. And they would come in, oh my God, the brigade commander just got ambushed, he's dead. And come to find out, no, the Humvee backfired. So, before we start launching the medevacs and the quick reaction force, let's confirm, and I'd have to beat that into my staff, say, hey, okay, first reports are always wrong, let's get the accurate information, let's find out what's going on before we begin launching assets and resources, and confirm, right? And that's, I think, just good advice for all of us, right? We all are in a rush to get news and information out, but oftentimes we don't verify what we're sending out as being truthful or accurate. It may be the truth as we perceive it, but that perception may be incorrect.
Play devil's advocate for a second, or maybe to highlight a possible challenge in doing that, is that how do you build trust in the community to actually say, no, I'm going to wait because I'm going to let the local authorities come out and give me the real story, but they've got to have some level of trust, and I'm not talking about Wolfeboro specifically, right. But the country's seen examples in other parts of the country, Texas and elsewhere, where the report would come out and from the authorities, and then people would later find out, that's not exactly true either.
So that's a really good point, and I just want to talk about that because we find it particularly in law enforcement that there is a real reluctance within the community, within the law enforcement community, not just within the state of New Hampshire, but also clear across the country, like you said, for information to be released. And I would agree with you. And that really is old school logic and mentality, and it's sometimes that's really hard to change. I'm fortunate, early on in my career, I was sent to public information officer school, and Kelly Ayotte, who was the Attorney General, actually ran the course with WMUR. And it was one of the best training courses I've ever been to, because you learn that the media has a job to do. You learn that the citizens have a right to this information, right? And it's in keeping with government transparency and letting them know what's going on. And so how do you build that trust, right? Well, how you build it is you release the information, and you release it in a timely fashion, but you make sure it's accurate first, right? And there's the dichotomy, right? You got to make sure that the information is accurate, and that takes time to verify, unfortunately, but it does. And then and obviously if you're too quick to release information, it's inaccurate. Now you got to print a retraction, and then somebody says, what's wrong with that Rondo guy? He can't get the story straight, and so there's some give and take in there. Have we released information publicly that has been inaccurate? Sure. Every agency does. Everybody does. You really try to not have those mistakes happen. But that's what you have to do. You have to get on a process by which you're releasing information, and you're doing it essentially religiously. And with law enforcement, I'll tell you, it is tough, because at the same time you got to get information out, right? We want the citizens to know what we're doing, right? And why do we? And let's talk about why we want to do that. We want to do that because it's citizens like you that are providing your tax dollars to fund the police department. So we want to make sure that we let you know that we're keeping the town safe, we're keeping the roads safe, we're doing this, we're doing that. All these things are happening, and that's what your tax money is going to fund, right? That's an important part of this. But we also have to make sure if we do make an arrest or we do have a critical incident, and there are going to be charges coming from that, whether it's a massive car crash or whether it's, an incident at the school or something along those lines, we got to make sure that we don't jeopardize the case in court, right? We don't want to, the county attorneys will tell you that the one thing that they don't want to do ever is try a case in the court of public opinion, and I agree, that's really, really bad. We look at cases, high-profile cases that you probably remember. You had the O.J. Simpson case, right? And then you had some other high-profile. Recently we had the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp case, even though that wasn't criminal, right? And it got to be, oh my God, it was terrible. You saw the stuff going back and forth. That's what you want to try to avoid, right? You want to avoid the sensationalism, because that could sway jurors, and that's what everybody's entitled to a free trial or a fair trial, and that's what we want to make sure happens, is that they get a fair trial, that some juror isn't inadvertently swayed one way or the other because of something they read or saw on social media. It's a challenge. So there's a couple of challenges here that we have to balance, right? The public's interest and need for news and factual, correct information, and a person's right to a fair and speedy trial, right? And those are really, really important. Those are constitutional protections. So everything is constitutional, right? The First Amendment there, you got First Amendment piece in here, you got Fourth Amendment pieces in here, you got 14th Amendment pieces in here. I mean, there's a lot of different pieces all at play. It's what makes the Constitution really interesting. But yeah, it's a challenge, and that's a challenge that we balance, right? We figure it out as best we can. So yeah, did that answer your question?
It does. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate it. Great questions.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, great questions. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody, to Coffee and Connections with the Chief. I'm here with two of my newfound friends. I have, to my right, I have Drew, and to my left, I have Josh. Go ahead and wave at the camera. And they're from Bolton, Mass. And I'm originally from Mass, too. I'm from Cambridge, Mass. So, Drew, we're going to start with you. What is your question that you want to ask me, young man?
Should I ask you like the same question?
Yeah, of course.
How many people have you arrested?
Oh boy, that's I'm not keeping count, but it's got to be in the hundreds, and it's probably in the high hundreds. I was a very active patrolman years ago. I've been doing this. I think the question you asked me earlier, how long have I been a police officer, right? And I'm going on my 27th year in law enforcement. And before this, I was in the Army. And I did some, and I was in the Army for a long time, but I did some cool things in the Army. And aside from being an infantry officer, I was also a special agent for Army counterintelligence. So I was going after some real bad guys, and that's when you're a counterintelligence agent, you're a federal agent. You have a badge of credential and powers of arrest. So yeah, I went after some real bad actors and real bad characters, and I was down in Latin America for a long time during the counter-drug war, and your mom probably remembers when all that was, and that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. That was a hoot. You know what that means? A hoot? It means that was a lot of fun. So Josh, you had a couple of questions, right? So what do you want to ask, young man?
One is, what's it like at the police academy station? Like, what's it like there?
Yeah, so the police academy, everybody wants to know. So the police academy is in so we have one academy in the state of New Hampshire. It's 16 weeks presently. It's in Concord. It's actually a really nice facility, and it is tough. It is difficult. I will not kid you. It was academically very challenging because you have to learn all the laws and all the rules, and you have to remember a lot of stuff, and you're tested on this knowledge every week. You have a battery of examinations that you have to pass, tests and so forth. But it's also very physically demanding. It's what is called a paramilitary style academy. So it's like basic training in the Army. Like it's you got to get up early in the morning and run miles and do lots of push-ups and sit-ups, and you get yelled at all the time. And but it's a challenge. It's difficult, but it's meant to be. It's meant to be because they want to produce the very best police officers that they can. And then when you come out of the police academy, we have to do another up to 16 weeks of what is called field training. And my captain was standing over there as a field training officer, and that program is very demanding as well. And that's where an older officer takes a younger officer on the road and shows him the ropes and what to do and how to do it. So both programs are very lengthy and very challenging. So about 32 weeks of training goes into making a police officer, which is a long time. It's well over half a year. So, do you have any other questions?
Yeah. What's the biggest case you've ever been a part of?
Oh, that's a great question. I've been part of so many cases. As I came up through investigations, just like the captain did. By the way, that's the fastest way to make rank in the police department is you come up through detectives or investigative services. I've had some really good cases. I've worked some major cases with the FBI. I've worked some major cases with the DEA. So we've had some really big drug cases that I've worked. I've had some really big bank fraud cases actually that I've worked with the FBI. That was really interesting. Are you good in math? Okay, well I'm not. So I was definitely the wrong guy to have on this case, but it came to me nonetheless. But I had great partners in the FBI, and we worked the case, and we worked this case jointly for about 9 months, and we got the bad guy. So that was good, and we were able to at least bring closure to the victims in this case, and that was a multi-million-dollar fraud case. So that was good. So thank you very much, fellas, for being on the show. Are you going out on the lake today?
Yes.
All right, so you be careful. You be careful out on the lake. You keep an eye on the weather, all right, because they're saying a 20% chance of thunderstorms, okay? All right, fellas, thank you very much. You have a great day, and thank you for being on the show. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Coffee and Connections with the Chief. I'm Chief Dean Rondeau, and this is your safety tip of the month. And actually, I have two of them. The first one's kind of an add-on to what I already spoke about earlier. When these critical incidents and so forth happen throughout the year, just be mindful about the information that you're sharing. Make sure it's accurate, it's coming from a verified source before you put that all over social media or your Instagram or whatever, your Twitter, because the last thing we want to do is share bad information or cause a greater kerfuffle than what's already going on. So just be mindful of that. And the second is as we get into September and now October, we're still enjoying those last vestiges of summer. There's still plenty of great days ahead as we wrap up the summer and move into early fall. It's actually my favorite time of the year right now. But the weather can change, and this is a common theme with me, and always keep an eye on the weather. And especially if you're out on the lake and enjoying those last few great boating days, keep your eye on the weather, and if you see thunder or lightning on the horizon, head into port as quickly as possible. So that's it. Thank you very much for joining me with for another segment of Coffee and Connections with the Chief, and I'll see you next month. Thank you. Bye-bye.